It's been a long time coming, but we're going to talk about the top 10 worst horror movies of 2018. Let's do this. What's up, guys? As of this recording, it is January 1st, 2019. I hope everyone had a happy new year. And we're going to count down the worst horror movies of 2018. I'll put a card here for my 10 best horror movies of 2018. And I will do not just horror, but movies in general, best and worst. I will do those probably within the next week or two. But right now we're going to do the 10 worst. And keep in mind that my number 10 might be a movie that I like, because I avoid bad movies like the plague. You know, I'm just that type of guy. If I don't want to go see a movie, I'm not going to go see it. So, like I said, number 10 might be a movie that I think is, you know, like 3 out of 5 stars. But I've seen a lot of movies this year, so there should be some duds in here for you. Also, this video is dedicated to one of my newest patrons, Trenton Bowser. He has a podcast right now on iTunes called GORE N MORE. I'll put a link below for that, and you can definitely check that out. But anyway, guys, let's get right into the countdown. Okay, coming in at number 10 is going to be a movie that I actually kind of dug, Hellfest, all right? So don't freaking rake me across the coals. I actually love the premise of this movie, that it takes place in this like horror amusement park. Visually, this movie looks very interesting, actually. And I actually did kind of like the look of the killer, but that's really where my problems come in for this movie. Is in the end, the killer didn't really do that much. And this is a PG-13 horror movie, and if you know my channel, you know my problem with PG-13 horror movies. For the most part, they're just not that good, especially when it comes to slashers, and this is a slasher. There were a few slashers this year. This was probably my least favorite. Halloween and Strangers Prey at Night, I loved the hell out of both those movies. This one fits into that category of wasted potential. You know, I think this could have been really good. Number 9 is going to be another movie that I actually dug, Hellraiser Judgment. Hellraiser Judgment is one of the better movies in the franchise, and I guess that should say something about the Hellraiser franchise. You know, I'd put it probably number 4 behind the first 3. But, you know, in the end, it still makes those mistakes of, you know, having that tired story of the detective that's hunting down what's causing these horrible acts to happen. It's been a while since I've seen this movie, but I will say that there are some good things to be had in it. I liked the last act. I like that they introduced like a good side, like an angelic type of character. They've never really done that in a Hellraiser movie before, and I actually kind of dug that. So, you know, this is a worst of list, but if there's some good about the movie, I'm going to tell you the good, and I think that was good. I think as far as like the violence in this, when you start throwing puke and stuff like that in your horror movies, then you kind of lose me. I'm just not into like puke in horror movies, and there's a lot of that in this movie. Number 8, really wasted effort here, The Predator. I was really looking forward to this one. I'm a Shane Black fan. The guy is a great writer, but this one, up to the middle, it was really good actually. And I was like, wow, we might have a great Predator movie here. But then it just falls off the wagon. They go into a really comedic territory, like too far, and you have this like giant predator in there, and that's just a lesson that bigger doesn't always mean better. Ladies might tell you different, but yeah, I just had some major issues with this movie in that last act. You know, they kind of go all over the place tonally, and there's a point in the movie, I'm sitting in the theater and I'm like, I don't care anymore, and that's not a good thing. Number 7 is a Mike Flanagan movie that kind of put me to sleep before I wake. Did dig the premise of this movie, actually. You know, the whole, well, I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but there was a nice twist in this, and it's centered around a sick child in this movie. But overall, I just found myself bored quite a bit with the movie. You got Thomas Jane and Kate Bosworth playing the parents. And really, I guess when you get right down to it, all the performances in this movie were just kind of there. You know, there was nothing that really just jumped out at me. It did have a nice ending, and that made up for it. But, you know, it's one of those movies. You ever have a movie where you throw it on, usually like a Netflix movie, and you just can't stay awake? You know, you end up falling asleep in the middle of the movie. That was Before I Wake for me. Number 6 is Unfriended Dark Web. I actually like the first Unfriended. I thought the characters were really great in that movie. It felt real. You know, there was just this heightened sense of anxiety and realism, and I was gripping my chair throughout that movie. You know, it was getting really intense. This one felt more like a gimmick, actually. I didn't think the whole dark web premise was explored properly, you know, because there's a lot of interesting things that you can explore with that. And unfortunately, the ending turned out to be pretty cliche for me. And these characters too, I thought were pretty cliche and generic, unlike the characters from the first movie. So in the end, this felt like just a throwaway movie for me. Number 5, I hate really putting down an independent film because I know how tough it is to get a film made, and but still, that doesn't excuse making a bad movie. I mean, there are great movies that are made for, you know, $25,000. It's happened. Blair Witch Project. So, the movie Bad Apples, I loved this premise. You know, when I saw the trailer for this movie, I was like, ooh, this could look really good. It's got Brie Grant in it. I'm a big fan of hers. And she's actually pretty decent in this movie. You got a lot of really stupid characters behind her in this, some bad acting. The two girls, you know, this premise of going door to door and the houses that don't have their lights on Halloween night, they go in and kill them. How awesome is that? That's a great premise. But they failed miserably in the execution of this. And a lot of it just had to do with, you know, poor production. I guess improper planning for a movie. There were so many times that a choice was made in this movie that threw me for a loop, and it took me out of the movie. So this was another one of those wasted potential types of films. And as far as this countdown, it's the one that I wanted to like the most. Speaking of ones that I really wanted to like, The Nun was 4th. The Nun was horrible, and it should have been great because The Nun, Valak, was the most interesting part of The Conjuring 2. I was really looking forward to seeing what they do with this character. Let's explore Valak and make it interesting. Atmospherically, it looked good, but the biggest problem with this movie was I'm not afraid of a computer effect. You know, everything was like CGI in this movie. And, you know, when I see just this like massive CGI creation on screen, it just completely takes me out of it. And you know what? For a character like this, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to go that route. You could have used like very little makeup on an actress in a nun suit, and it could have worked. You know, if this movie would have came out in the 80s, it could have been great. But sometimes having too much technology at your disposal is a bad thing. You know, Jaws is case in point. The shark kept failing, so they had to get really creative. And this is a perfect example of that. Hated The Nun. Number 3 is a movie that I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I don't even think I finished this movie, the first Purge. I got up and left. And it's one of the only movies this year that I just got up and left. I just could not give a crap about any of these characters in this movie. And to their credit, I am not a fan of the Purge franchise. The first one had some potential there, and then the rest of them, I just couldn't care less. And this was supposed to be how the whole thing began. This could have been interesting, actually. The way these characters are handled, and the main quote-unquote good guy of the movie happens to be a complete douchebag, drug dealer, I couldn't get behind it. So I didn't like the first Purge at all. But like I said, if you're a fan of this franchise, then you might have liked that, but I don't like any of the Purge movies. Number 2 is Truth or Dare, and this one was my number 1 for the longest time. And I kind of went back and forth between, because this one and number 1 are pretty close. But Truth or Dare is one of those that it should have been really good. From seeing the trailer, there was elements of the trailer I liked. The premise I liked, that you have to do the dare or you die. That's great. But what did I say in The Nun? Same thing in here. They have this computer-generated face that every single time it comes on screen, I want to throw something. I wanted to throw pickles at the screen. The face looked ridiculous, and it completely took me out of the movie. And unfortunately, that is your main gag in the whole movie. That is your scare, that stupid face. And I hated it. They could have tweaked an actual person's face, or maybe threw on some demon eyes or something like that to make it scary, but no, it was horrible. And then number 1, probably no surprise here, Slender Man. Slender Man was a complete piece of garbage on every single level. Every single character in this movie was complete throwaway characters. I didn't give a crap about any of them. They made stupid choices. They made the choice to like go back into the woods knowing that they're going to get killed. The Slender Man himself, like I said, complete CGI fest, piece of crap. Do you see a theme forming here, guys? I don't really like a lot of these supernatural movies that depend on CGI all the way through. That's what Slender Man was. I didn't even find Slender Man that interesting as a character, and you know, it's based on that whole case that happened a few years ago, but yeah, it wasn't executed properly in this movie. And if I'm kind of vague on some of this stuff, guys, it's because these movies left my head almost immediately after I left the theater. You know, they were just that bad to me, and I have a problem with remembering bad movies. But I can tell you right now, I hated a lot of them. So anyway, guys, post in the comments your bottom 5 or bottom 10, whatever you want to do. Looking forward to seeing them. Did you like any of these movies that I mentioned? I'd be curious to see that too. Oh, and thank you, Dan Shonen, for this shirt. He is an artist, and he drew this shirt, and it's awesome. So thank you. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day, and on Fridays, we do Free For All Fridays. If you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.